I'm Susan Goss, and as a seasoned therapist of more than 15 years, I'm honored to have had the opportunity to gain so much wisdom from so many people and love passing that knowledge on to others. So join me and some of my favorite friends as we share some tangible truths with you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tangible Truth Podcast. I'm Susan Goss, and we have Brandon back with us, and I'm thrilled to talk about the topic of work. I think you know a little bit something about work.
A little bit, yes.
Just a little bit. And what I think I know about both of us is we've got a really high work ethic.
Yes.
You do and I do. Mine is based from my family of origin. My parents were, work ethic, and I saw it all my life, and it was just something that I never even questioned it. It was just work, and so I've got a really strong work ethic. Did yours originate from family of origin?
Absolutely.
And it was just something you just saw and did without even, I don't even think about it. It's just like, this is something we do.
Yeah. And especially, just watching my dad, hard worker, came from very little. He was very poor growing up, one of 4 boys to a widow whose father died when he was 9.
There you go.
So he talks about how he went to work at 9, mowing lawns, raising rabbits, working for his uncle in plumbing in the Gulf of Mexico. And every dime he made went back to his mom so that they could pay their mortgage and feed their family because he didn't have a dad. So I know that story intimately and watched him work really hard to provide for our family everything he never had. And I'm grateful that he did. He was such a great provider.
Yes.
But sometimes work can get misaligned.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And what that looks like. What does that mean to you when you say work can sometimes be misaligned? Because I think it will immediately align with what we talked about in the last episode of what we cultivate.
Yes.
And work is no exception.
Work is no exception. That's exactly right.
Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, in the last episode, we had talked about cultivating faithfulness.
Yes.
And that word cultivating, I love that you chose that word because we're all cultivating something.
All the time.
All the time. And when it comes to our families, we can choose a work to do that would cultivate what an outcome we want for our families.
True.
Both good and maybe not good. So I can choose a work that maybe I have to put a lot of hours in and it's hard, but man, I'm going to make a lot of money and we're going to be able to vacation all the time and buy the big home and have the cars and save for retirement and all those things. But I'm going to have to sacrifice my time with my family in order to do that. But that's what I want to cultivate because I want to give my kids everything they didn't ever have.
True.
So that can be where work maybe gets misaligned in a wrong direction, right? But then, work has an origin. I think you talked about that. You just said that. You said that about your, you learned your work ethic. It had an origin in your family. Well, work itself has an origin. And it starts in Genesis chapter 1.
It does.
But most of us start the work story or the narrative story in Genesis chapter 3, which is the fall. So most of us see work as a necessary evil. It's something I have to do. I have to do it to provide. I don't have a choice. Work's hard. And so therefore it's cursed. And therefore it is a curse. It's a part of our being cursed because we chose to rebel against God in Genesis chapter 3. But work has an origin that begins in Genesis chapter 1. God very specifically wrote in Genesis chapter 1 and 2 that he created for 6 days. He rested on the 7th, and in that he created the whole earth. But there's a section in there that says, but before there was any rain, before any crop had yielded, there was no man to work the ground. And God goes and creates Adam. And he creates Adam outside the garden in the wilderness, creates the garden, and then he places Adam, and the language specifically says, places him in the garden to work it and keep it. And God gives Adam the first commission. We know the Great Commission, make disciples of all nations, but there's a first commission, and it was be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth. God says, look, I've started creation. I'm not completing it. I'm now inviting you to co-create with me, to work with me, to cultivate the ground, to bring about a culture to flourish and to grow, be fruitful and multiply. Doesn't mean to just have a lot of kids, even though Betsy and I fulfilled that part of that little commission. To flourish and multiply, it literally also means to bring about civilization, to co-create with me, to continue the creation that I started. And that's what God did. And fortunately, God realizes Adam can't do it alone, and he creates a helper in Eve. And now the two of them cultivate together, and the two of them create together and work together. But then they rebel. And in the curse, God says, look, you're still going to work, but now work's going to be really, really hard. You're going to have thorns and thistles. And so work itself is not the curse. Unfortunately, work has been cursed because we chose to rebel against God. But work is still good. How do we know that? Because it was created when things were good. And so work can be used for good, or it can be used to direct us away from God. And so work can have an impact on a family either for good, or it can have a negative impact. Depends on what you're trying to cultivate.
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
What are you trying to cultivate?
Yeah. Work is a part of our identity. It is not our identity, but it's a part of it. God was a worker. And if we bear his image, that means that we too are workers like God. And so work should be a part of our identity. We should work, man and women. I mean, Proverbs 31 is a whole chapter on the work of this amazing woman that she did for her family and how she worked and the good work that she did. You go to Paul's letter in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. We know that chapter 2 of Ephesians really well. We all recite it really well. By grace, you've been saved through faith. That's not a work that you did, it's a gift of God. But he continues on in verse 10 and he says that you are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand for you to do. Two things happen in that verse about work. First, we're God's workmanship. It literally means that we are a work of art, that God is shaping and painting and forming into his image in order that we can do good work that God prepared for us to do. And so we all have a good work to do, whether we're paid to do it or not. And so that's where work is a part of our identity. But sometimes, I know especially with men, we make work our identity. And that's when things can go south.
They do.
They do. And you've met with many who have made their work their identity. And what do you see happens to folks that make work their identity?
When work is their identity, it works at work, and it's the opposite when they go home. And in relationship, it is a total failure. When that happens, it separates who they are at work with who they are in relationship. Because they're one way at work and they're another way at home or in relationship with others. So they are a divided soul, so to speak, or divided heart. That's in Psalm 86, I believe, 11, if I've got that right. So at work, you're the striver. But at home, let's say you do go home to a family or in a relationship and you're still in that mode, it doesn't work. You're not cultivating the same thing. You need to be cultivating bonding. You need to be cultivating an emotional connection. If you're married, with your wife, with your children, they're at a totally different level over here than corporate America, or whatever. Right. So if your identity is in Christ and he's your Lord at work and he's your Lord at home. So what does that look like? If he's your Lord at work and he's your Lord and King at home, then you don't have a divided heart. Right. And it sounds complicated, and it's not. If your identity's in Christ. But if you're struggling with that identity, it's really difficult to keep up because you're cultivating two different things.
That's right.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's
is hard on somebody.
It is. Work is a part of our sanctification process. Work is a means by which God uses to help cultivate our faithfulness and our faith. I can remember Betsy and I bought a restaurant franchise, and I thought it was a great idea. I was watching Food Network and thought, hey, I could do that. And I realized I couldn't. We owned it for a number of years. It was a pizza franchise and made a lot of pizza. My kids ate a lot of burnt pizza because we didn't want to throw anything away. And so we brought it home and they ate it. And man, I could sling that New York style pizza and throw it up real big and make a big old pizza. And I could clean the bathrooms and I could do everything in between. And I washed my hands between all that. Don't worry for those of you whose pizza I made. But I can remember it got to a place where the business was failing. And it was time for me to move on. But I knew, I was like, God, it can't end this way with bankruptcy. That's where I thought I was going to be with work. And of course, my identity was all wrapped up in it. Who I was as a man. I felt like I was less of a man because I was failing at this and not providing like I could. And I found myself flat on my face on December 22nd of 2019, flat on my face on the floor of this pizza restaurant after closing at 10 o'clock at night and praying, God, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. What's going on? It can't end this way. And I was driving home ready to call a lawyer. And I got an email from a guy that said, hey, are you trying to sell your restaurant? And I said, only if you can close and buy it in about a week because I was going bankrupt. You're going to have to file. He said, okay. And he bought it from me on like December 28th, 2019. Well, what happened in January of 2020?
Oh, my
The pandemic, right?
Oh, my.
God was so merciful, but he used my work to draw me closer to him. He used that work to sanctify me and to cultivate faithfulness. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we don't see our work that way, but gosh, I mean, how many passages when Jesus describes the kingdom of God, he uses work to describe it.
And there are so many opportunities at work for God to cultivate our faithfulness.
Oh my gosh,
it's unbelievable.
Well, we spend between 90,000 and 100,000 hours of our adult life working. Can you imagine if God was like, hey, look, for half of your adult life, I'm just going to let you go to work and do your job. And I'm just going to wait here until you get back. And you can only engage me if you're in your quiet time in the morning time, or if you're at church on Sunday or Wednesday night. That's when we'll talk. Otherwise, just go do your job. Can you imagine that being the heart of God? No, God invites us to work with him, not necessarily for him, but with him in whatever work we're doing, whether we're a barista, making a cup of coffee, whether we're owning a company, whether we're counseling someone, whether I'm digging a ditch to lay a pipe. God is inviting us to work with him.
100%.
100%.
And that's a holy experience, no matter what you're doing. No matter what. I could list every profession in the world, but it doesn't matter. If you're doing it and open-handed, allowing God to work through you, you will learn so much and get closer to God, because there's not a workplace in the world that doesn't have relational issues.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
And so you've got to allow God to work through you, to say to him, you know, I can't deal with this. I can't do this, but you can. I can't love this person, but I know that you can through me, all the things. I mean, there's not an issue, but if he's Lord of your life, he will be Lord at work.
Absolutely.
And then your identity, if it's with Christ, then you can deal with people.
Yeah. And this work idea and what you're talking about is very difficult in this culture. Very, very difficult. And I think there's three things that really influence, both either for good or not good, how we view work. One is obviously our home of origin. If we saw that, man, our parents, you know, their identity was caught up in what they did and we inherited that can be a bad thing, right? Our culture, you look on TikTok, you're looking on Instagram, all these social media things, and you're watching people and they are pursuing all of this wealth and they're pursuing a name in the industry and they're pursuing all these things. And you think that's what I have to be successful. That can have a negative impact. How we define success can have an impact on how we work. Ambition can be a good thing and not a good thing. Right. I mean, this is something I've struggled with as a man. I mean, I want to provide for my family. I want to provide with Betsy for our family. I want to do a good work and, you know, and have a good name and all these things. And so if my identity is caught up in that, then when things go bad, I crumble. And then I bring that home relationally. So Betsy and I talk a lot about the fact that we may never be rich financially, but man, we want to be rich relationally. I was meeting with a young man recently and we were talking about work, and he had been out of work for months and he was just crushed. And I understand, because part of our identity as an image bearer of God is that we're workers. And if we're not working, then there's a part of identity that we're not fulfilling in that. And so he was crushed. Well, he finally got a job and he started working. Well, he's only there a couple of months and he has an opportunity to move up. And I sat with him and it's, of course, it's just natural. You're like, oh, I can move up. I can get more pay and it's more work, but it's more work and it's busy. And in his season of life with a young baby and all this stuff and some other things going on, I looked at him and I said, there's times where you shouldn't move up. Why do you think you need to? Oh, well, I can make more money and I can do this and we can do that and we can buy a home and we can all do all these things. And I said, but again, what are you chasing? Because if you chase that and you decide to do that, what are you going to give up? Well, I'm going to give up a relationship with my wife and my baby in my church, and I'm going to be busier and I'm going to be all that. But in our culture, it's like just natural. Yeah, take the next better thing and improve your life, right? But I think when you look at Jesus and stuff, I don't know that that's always the right play because then you're chasing and pursuing ambition over relationship.
That's really, really good stuff. And he pursued you. I'm going to go back to the last
he
episode.
did.
I'm going to go back to that last episode. He pursued you.
He pursued me and he wanted to know how to do that.
How to do it. He pursued a mentor and now you've given him something to really pray about and to see what's the wisest choice for him to make where he's at right now with a baby and a wife.
Yeah.
And Brandon, speaking of work, I want the listeners to hear about Workmatters. I love Workmatters. I support Workmatters. Love what it stands for. So you tell the listeners what Workmatters stands for.
Workmatters loves Susan Goss too.
Great.
We had you in our forum here in Northwest Arkansas a month or so ago, and it was a huge hit where you and I had a conversation around balance and burnout. Workmatters, we believe that everyone is being formed into the image of Christ in work, at work, and through work. And we believe that God is at work forming you into the image of his son through what you do. And that God is using you in the formation of others around you. And that's the relationships that we talked about just a minute ago. And that God's Spirit through your work wants to bring about a redemption and a renewal in the world. Right? The new heaven, the new earth is going to be here. And with that, there's going to be work. And we believe that Jesus said that when we say the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done where? On earth as it is in heaven. And that we are to be doing that good work, that good kingdom work right where we are in the work that we do, whether it's through a spreadsheet or digging a ditch or providing medical care or teaching or coaching, that we can do good redemptive work that brings renewal and healing to the world right where we are. And so we get to partner with churches and businesses and universities and individuals to help Christians see work as sacred.
So true. It is so sacred.
It is. Going back to Genesis 1, where we worked with God in the garden, that it's holy and it's good. So we do that through providing content. We provide conversation. We provide community, and we look for collaborative opportunities to work with organizations and with universities. So
that is wonderful.
Yeah. But we want people to change the narrative of work. I love that line, change the narrative of work. I told a story recently where I asked the crowd, I said, when you were in school, you were told to get good grades. Why? So you could get into a good college. Then you need to get good grades in college. Why? So that you could get a good job. You want a really good job so that you can make a lot of money. You want to make a lot of money so that eventually you can retire. Right? Well, that's the narrative that I grew up with of understanding work. And yet God says that's actually not the narrative of work.
No.
The narrative of work is that I can co-create with God. Work is dignifying and brings about dignity. It brings about good in the world right with God. I can be salt and light in this world through the work that I do, regardless of what that work is. And so we want to help people see work differently. And that's what we do at Workmatters.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I have to tell you an example, a perfect example of being holy at work.
Okay.
When I'm in session as a therapist, I am constantly saying, as I walk them down the hall, as I bring them into the office, as I set them into the room and they're looking at me from the sofa, I'm saying in my spirit, my mind, God, what do you want to say? Over and over again, taking me out of the equation. And it becomes literally a holy experience for me.
Yeah.
And it's just, it overtakes me. They may come back. I've had this happen more times than I can tell you. When they come back and say, I just, what you said last week, it just meant so much. And I am saying, I said that. I mean, I didn't, I literally have no memory of it because I know that it was God. It's a holy experience.
Yeah.
So when you say, God, what do you want to say? You're asking him, inviting him to speak through you. I think no matter what, that's an experience that I have. But I say that so many times. I was saying it today. God, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
In the podcast, saying it also through you. And it's just like you want to take yourself out and let God work through you no matter.
That's right.
Like you were saying, doesn't matter what you're doing, but you want him to work through you. We
have tended to separate the sacred work from the secular work. And we think that sacred work's really that pastoral ministry. I've got to go on missions. That's what's sacred. Secular is just the job I'm doing, right? I once asked an author about that, Jordan Rayner, who wrote a great book called The Sacredness of Secular Work. And I said, what makes a work sacred? And he said, if you're a Christian and you bear the Spirit of God inside of you, simply walking through the front door, you've just made that work sacred and holy. So he said, so you want to make your work sacred? Walk through the front door. I thought it was so good. I was recently traveling back and I was in an airport and there was a gentleman with a bright colored vest on and he was in the bathroom and he was standing next to his big contraption that holds all of the toilet paper and the mop and the trash. And you've seen him when you're at the airport and they're standing next to their cart and they're waiting to get in the bathroom and clean the bathroom. And he goes in and he starts cleaning the bathroom and in the airport. And I walked up to him and I said, hey man, I just wanted to tell you, thank you. Thank you for cleaning this bathroom. I said, your work really matters to God. And he looked at me and he goes, what the heck are you talking about? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, your work really matters to God. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you don't clean this bathroom really well, however many times a day you do it, and thousands of us are coming through this airport and we're using this bathroom. And he and I are having this conversation, by the way, in the bathroom, which is just awkward, right? And I said, if you don't clean this bathroom really well and thousands of us come through here in this airport today, and you just decide you don't want to do your job, we're going to start getting sick. There's going to be disease in here. And then we're going to carry it out there. And the next thing you know, we're going to have another pandemic, all because maybe you chose not to see this work as sacred, as something valuable for humankind and working with God. I said, you're telling me your job doesn't matter to God? It deeply matters. You're keeping me healthy so I can go home to my wife and my kids. I said, thank you so much. And he was like, holy cow, I never thought of that before. That's incredible, right? But that's the way God sees that work. The work that man is doing is valuable to the kingdom.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we can change that narrative, then we can see work differently. But in order to change a narrative, we have to be talking about this all the time. Because guess what? I go to sleep and I wake up the next morning and I dread having to go to work and I have meetings.
Oh, I know.
And I need to keep thinking about it. That's where Workmatters plays a role. We get people thinking about work differently from the perspective that it can be a Genesis 1 sacred thing that God is using to shape you into the image of his son.
I love these conversations. It is wonderful. We have loved having you on the podcast, Brandon, and I love Work Matters. So look it up on
workmatters.org.
Workmatters.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for participating and being a part of Tangible Truth Podcast.
Thanks.
Thanks, listeners. We love you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Tangible Truth Podcast, part of the KLRC Podcast Network.